I worked at a gas station for about a year and a half. Overnight shift, 11 at night to 7 in the morning. Just me. No other employees. A small booth with bulletproof glass between me and the customers, a register, a coffee machine, and a wall of cigarettes behind me. The kind of gas station you've driven past 1,000 times and never thought about the person inside. Most nights were dead. A few truckers between midnight and 2. The occasional drunk guy buying chips, maybe a cop getting coffee around 4. Long stretches of nothing in between. I'd bring my laptop and watch shows or do homework. It was boring. That was fine. Boring meant safe. One night in February, around 3 in the morning, a guy came in. Nothing unusual about him at first. Average height, maybe late 40s. Thin, wearing a dark coat and jeans. He walked in through the front door and the little chime went off. He didn't come to the counter. He walked to the back of the store where the coolers are and just stood there, not looking at the drinks, not opening a door, just standing in the aisle with his hands in his coat pockets facing the coolers. I watched him on the monitor for a couple minutes. People browse, people take their time, whatever. But after about 5 minutes, he still hadn't moved, hadn't picked anything up, hadn't opened a cooler. He was just standing there. I hit the intercom and asked if he needed help. He didn't respond, didn't look up, didn't acknowledge me at all. I watched him for another minute. Then he turned around and walked toward the counter. He stopped on the other side of the glass and looked at me. He had this completely flat expression. Not angry, not confused, not smiling, just blank, like his face was a screen that had been turned off. He stood there and looked at me for probably 10 seconds without saying anything. I asked him if he wanted to buy something. He said no. Then he turned around and walked out. I watched him through the window. He didn't get in a car. He walked across the parking lot to the far corner where the light for the overhead lamps doesn't quite reach, and he sat down on the curb, facing the store, facing me. I figured he was waiting for someone, a ride, a friend. Maybe he lived nearby and was just killing time. I went back to my laptop. 20 minutes later, I looked up. He was still there. Same spot, same position, sitting on the curb in the dark corner of the parking lot facing the store window. An hour later, still there. At 4:30, a trucker came in for coffee. While I was ringing him up, I glanced at the parking lot. The man was still sitting on the curb. The trucker didn't seem to notice him. Nobody notices anything at a gas station at 4:30 in the morning. At 5:15, I looked again. He'd moved. He wasn't on the curb anymore. He was standing, closer to the building, maybe 30 feet from the front door, still facing the store, hands in his coat pockets. My stomach tightened. I picked up my phone and thought about calling the police. But what would I say? There's a man standing in my parking lot. He's not doing anything. He's just standing there. They'd think I was wasting their time. At 5:45, I looked up from my phone and he was standing right outside the front door, on the other side of the glass, less than 6 feet from me, looking at me through the window. I nearly fell off my stool. He wasn't trying the door. He wasn't knocking. He was just standing there, hands in his pockets, that same dead expression, staring at me through the glass. The overhead fluorescent light from inside the store was hitting his face, and I could see his eyes clearly for the first time. They weren't angry, they weren't empty, they were focused. He was studying me the way you'd read a menu, carefully, like he was deciding something. We looked at each other for about 30 seconds. My hand was on my phone. My thumb was on the 9. Then a car pulled into the lot. Headlights swept across the front of the store. The man turned his head toward the car, paused for a moment, and then walked away. Across the lot, across the road, into the dark on the other side. The car was just a regular customer getting gas. She didn't even come inside. My replacement showed up at 7. I told him what happened. He shrugged and said weird people come to gas stations at night. That's just how it is. He'd seen worse. I worked 3 more overnight shifts that week. On the second one, around 2 in the morning, I looked at the parking lot camera and saw a figure sitting on the curb in the far corner. Same spot, same posture, facing the store. I called the police that time. They sent a car. By the time the officer drove through the lot, the curb was empty. The officer came inside and told me he didn't see anyone. He said to call again if the guy came back. He came back the next night. Same spot, same time, sitting on the curb. I called again. Same result, gone before the cops arrived. I quit the following week. I told my manager I was done with overnights and if he couldn't move me to days I was leaving. He couldn't, so I left. About a month after I quit, I ran into the girl who took over my overnight shift. We were at a mutual friend's party and she pulled me aside. She asked if I'd ever had a weird guy come in late at night and just stand around. I felt my stomach drop. I told her about the man, the coat, the curb, the way he'd just watch. She went quiet for a second. Then she told me he'd been coming in on her shifts too. Same time, same routine. But he'd started coming inside more, staying longer, standing closer to the glass. She said, one night he stood at the counter and asked her what time her shift ended. She said 7. He said he knew. She quit 2 weeks after that conversation. I drove past that gas station a couple months later during the daytime. Different clerk behind the counter. Normal afternoon. Cars at the pumps. Nothing weird. But I looked at that far corner of the parking lot, where the light doesn't reach, and I thought about what it feels like to be alone in a glass box at 3 in the morning with someone watching you from the dark. Patient, unhurried, learning your schedule, and I kept driving. I worked the front desk at a hotel for about 2 years, mostly night audit. 11 to 7, the hotel was a mid-range chain, nothing fancy, 120 rooms over 4 floors. At night it was just me at the desk and one housekeeper doing turndowns until about 1. After that I was alone in the lobby until morning. It was a quiet job. Check in late arrivals, run the daily reports, answer the occasional call from a guest who needed extra towels. Most nights nothing happened. One Wednesday in March around 2 in the morning, the phone at the front desk rang. Room 414. 4th floor. A woman's voice. She sounded calm but tight, the way people sound when they're trying not to panic. She said there was someone in her room. I asked her what she meant. She said she woke up and saw a man standing by the window. She turned on the bedside lamp, and he was gone, but she was sure she saw someone. She said she didn't think she was dreaming because the curtains were open. She always closed them before bed. I told her I'd send someone up. I didn't have security that night. It was just me. I grabbed the master key and took the elevator to the 4th floor. I knocked on 414. She opened the door. Middle-aged woman. Business traveler. She looked shaken but not hysterical. She pointed at the window and said he was standing right there. I checked the room, bathroom, closet, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. Nobody. The window was closed and locked. The door had been locked from the inside with the deadbolt in the swing bar. There was no way anyone could have gotten in or out without her knowing. I told her she probably had a vivid dream. It happens in hotels. Unfamiliar room, different bed. Your brain does weird things. She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. I told her to call the desk if anything else happened. I went back downstairs. She didn't call again. She checked out the next morning. Normal checkout. No complaints. I didn't think about it again. 2 nights later. Friday. Around 1:30. The phone rang. Room 414 again. Different guest this time. A man. Business traveler. He said something weird happened. He said he woke up and the bathroom light was on. He was sure he'd turned it off. He got up to turn it off and the shower curtain was pulled closed. He always left it open. He pulled it back and nobody was there, but the bathtub was wet. He asked if housekeeping could have come in. I told him no, not at 1:30 in the morning. He said the deadbolt was still locked. He sounded more confused than scared. He said forget it. Probably just forgot he took a shower. We hung up. The next week. Same room. Different guest. This time a couple. The wife called at 3 in the morning. She said she heard the closet door sliding open while they were in bed. Her husband checked. The closet was empty, but their suitcase, which they'd left closed on the luggage rack, was open. Some of her clothes had been moved around. Not taken. Just moved. Rearranged. 3 different guests, 3 different nights. Same room. All reported something happening between 1 and 3 in the morning. All reported the room was locked from the inside. All reported that nothing was missing. I told my manager. He said old hotels have weird ventilation that can move curtains and doors. He said guests imagine things. He said it was nothing. But I started watching the 4th floor camera at night. The hallway camera. It pointed straight down the corridor toward room 414. For 3 nights, nothing. Empty hallway, no movement. On the 4th night, at 2:16 a.m., I saw something on the monitor that made me put down my coffee. The door to 414 opened. From the inside, slowly. About 8 inches. It stayed open for about 15 seconds. Then it closed again, slowly, quietly. Nobody came out. Nobody went in. The door just opened and closed on its own. I rewound the footage and watched it again. The door opens. Pause. The door closes. No hand visible on the handle. No shadow in the gap. Just the door moving by itself. I went up to the 4th floor. I stood outside 414 and listened. I could hear the guest's TV playing softly inside. I knocked. The guest answered, a tired-looking man in his 50s. I asked if everything was okay. He said fine. He asked why. I said I was just doing a routine check. He looked annoyed and closed the door. I went back to the desk. I pulled up the maintenance records for room 414. Plumbing work had been done 8 months ago. The work order showed that a contractor had accessed the room through a maintenance panel in the adjacent utility closet. The panel connected to a shared space between 414 and the utility room. The panel was supposed to be sealed after the work was finished. The next morning, I asked maintenance to check the panel. They found it unsealed. The screws had been removed. The panel opened easily. Behind it was a space about 3 feet wide that ran between the walls. There was enough room for a person to stand up. Inside the space, on the floor, they found a blanket, a water bottle, a phone charger plugged into an exposed outlet. Someone had been entering room 414 through the wall. They had a way in that bypassed every lock on the door. The deadbolt, the swing bar, the chain, none of it mattered because they weren't using the door. They were coming through a panel in the wall that nobody knew was open. We don't know how long it had been happening. We don't know how many guests woke up to a stranger in their room and were told they were dreaming. We don't know how many never woke up at all. The hotel sealed the panel, changed the locks, and installed a camera inside the utility closet. They didn't call the police. They didn't want the publicity. I was told not to discuss it. I'm discussing it now because I don't work there anymore. And because somewhere out there in some other hotel in some other city, there is a maintenance panel that was supposed to be sealed and wasn't. And if you've ever woken up in a hotel room with the feeling that something was wrong, that the curtains were different, or the bathroom light was on, or something in your suitcase had been moved, maybe you weren't dreaming. Maybe the door was locked the whole time because nobody used the door. I got a job at a bakery the summer after high school. Small place, family owned. The kind of shop that opens at 6 and is fresh bread up by 6:15. To pull that off, somebody had to be there by 4 in the morning to start the ovens and mix the dough. That somebody was me. The owner gave me a key and showed me the routine. Arrive at 4, disarm the alarm, turn on the lights, start the ovens, begin prep. The first other person wouldn't arrive until 5:30. So for about 90 minutes every morning, I was alone in the building. It was an old building, brick exterior, tile floors. The kitchen was in the back. The front of the shop had display cases and a register. There was a narrow hallway connecting the two with a walk-in cooler on one side and a storage room on the other. The bathroom was at the end of the hallway. I got used to the sounds pretty quickly. The ovens ticking as they heated up, the cooler humming, the building settling, old pipes doing old pipe things. After the first week, none of it bothered me. One morning in July, I got there at my usual time, 4:05. I unlocked the front door, stepped in, and punched the alarm code. The alarm beeped and disarmed like always. I flipped on the lights in the front, walked through to the kitchen, and started my routine. About 20 minutes in, I was standing at the prep table rolling dough when I heard a sound from the front of the shop. It was faint, like something shifting, a chair moving, a soft thud. I stopped rolling and listened. The front of the shop was dark. I hadn't turned those lights on because I didn't need to be up there yet. I could see the doorway from where I was standing, but not much beyond it. I called out, "Hello?" Nothing. I told myself it was the building. It was always making sounds in the morning when the temperature changed. I went back to the dough. A few minutes later, I heard it again, louder this time, definitely from the front. It sounded like a chair being dragged across the tile floor, just a few inches. Scree, then silence. I put the dough down. I wiped my hands on my apron. I walked to the hallway. The hallway was dark. The storage room door was closed. The cooler door was closed. The bathroom door at the end of the hall was open, which was normal. I always left it open. I walked through the hallway into the front of the shop and turned on the lights. One of the chairs was pulled out from a table, not all the way, just a few inches, like someone had been sitting in it and scooted back. I was sure I hadn't touched any chairs when I came in. I came through the front door and went straight to the kitchen. I didn't stop at any tables. I didn't pull out any chairs. I stood there looking at it. Then I checked the front door. Locked. I had locked it behind me when I came in. Habit. The windows were all closed. The alarm had been set when I arrived. If someone had opened a door or window while the alarm was active, it would have tripped, which meant that if someone was in the building, they were here before I arrived, before the alarm was set the night before. They had been inside this building all night. I went back to the kitchen. I picked up my phone. I stood there trying to decide if I was being ridiculous. It was a chair. Chairs move. Buildings shift. Tiles are uneven. There were 10 explanations and 9 of them were boring. Then the bathroom door closed. I heard it clearly. The click of the latch, the sound of a door settling into its frame. The bathroom door at the end of the hallway, the one I always left open, had just closed. I was alone in this building. The doors were locked, the alarm had been set, and the bathroom door just closed on its own. I didn't check. I didn't walk down that hallway. I didn't call out. I grabbed my phone and my keys and I walked out the back door into the parking lot. I called the owner. It was 4:30 in the morning and I woke him up. I told him something was wrong. Someone might be in the building. He lived 10 minutes away. He came in his truck with his son. They went inside together. I waited in the parking lot. They checked every room, the kitchen, the storage room, the cooler, the bathroom, the little office upstairs. Nothing, nobody. The owner came outside and told me the building was empty. He said the chair probably wasn't pushed in properly the night before. He said the bathroom door probably closed because of a draft from the ovens heating up. He was nice about it. He didn't make me feel stupid. But I could tell he thought I was overreacting. I went back inside and finished my shift. The baker arrived at 5:30. Everything was normal. But that night, the owner called me. His voice was different, tighter. He said he'd looked at the security camera footage from the night before, the camera in the front of the shop, the one that records overnight. He said at 1:47 a.m., the bathroom door opened. A person walked out. They walked to one of the tables, sat down in a chair, and sat there in the dark for over 2 hours. Just sitting, not moving, not looking at their phone, not eating, just sitting at a table in a closed bakery in the middle of the night. At 4:05, when my headlights swept across the front windows as I pulled into the parking lot, the person stood up, pushed the chair back, walked down the hallway and went into the bathroom. They closed the door. When the owner and his son searched the building 40 minutes later, they checked the bathroom. They said it was empty. But the bathroom had a ceiling panel, one of those drop ceiling tiles. The owner checked later and found it had been moved. Above the panel was a crawl space that connected to the roof. There was an access hatch on the roof that led to the fire escape on the side of the building. Whoever it was had climbed up through the ceiling while the owner and his son were searching the other rooms. They went up through the bathroom ceiling, into the crawl space, out the roof hatch, down the fire escape, and disappeared. They were in that bathroom when I was standing 20 feet away. I finished out the week and quit. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be alone in that building at 4 in the morning knowing that somebody had been sitting in the dark, watching the front windows, waiting. For what? I don't know. For 2 hours they just sat there in the dark, in an empty bakery, doing nothing. That's the part I can't stop thinking about. Not the crawl space, not the roof, not the escape, the sitting. 2 hours of sitting perfectly still in a dark room in the middle of the night. What kind of person does that? If you like these kinds of stories, please subscribe because it really means a lot to me.